So, if I'm being honest, last week I did not want to record. I didn't feel motivated, I wasn't inspired, and I didn't feel creative. And I even was questioning if I even wanted to continue with the podcast. And it wasn't because I didn't love it or I didn't believe in it, but I was tired. I was mentally and physically exhausted. And I felt discouraged. I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, and I started to feel unmotivated. I knew this was something that I was called to do, but I was tired. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, but it's not something that's always talked about. What do you do when you're in your calling, you're doing what you're supposed to do, but you feel unmotivated? You feel discouraged, you feel stuck. Well, today we're going to talk about it. We're going to have real conversations of what you can do when you feel unmotivated and discouraged. Welcome back to the Unique in You podcast, where we empower women to grow spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. My name is Dr. Kayeen Robinson. I'm your host, and today we're going to talk about what to do when you feel unmotivated and stuck. Whether it's you starting a business, or you navigating through work, or creating content, or serving in ministry, or even just healing emotionally, sometimes we feel tired. And sometimes we start to question if we should even continue. We start questioning ourselves, is this where I'm supposed to be? And sometimes we may even call ourselves lazy. When it's not about being lazy, sometimes we are, but sometimes we are just mentally exhausted and we're tired. Our mind and body is trying to catch up with us emotionally. And today I want to talk about it because last week this was me. This was me. This is how I felt. I felt stuck. So I want to share my experience of what I've been going through within the last week or two. And for those that are familiar with me or have seen all my episodes, in episode 1, I explained why I started the podcast and how God called me or directed me to start this podcast. And I gave him my yes, and I set a schedule for myself. I said this is something that I want to do bi-weekly. I didn't want to I didn't want to go too big and say weekly and then I'm unable to stick to it. But I said bi-weekly. I can stick with bi-weekly with doing the podcast episodes. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I started falling behind. Usually I have about 2 episodes ahead of when it's supposed to post. But the last couple weeks, I started pushing it back. I started feeling discouraged and I was falling behind schedule. But I wanted to stick to it. I didn't want to fall behind because I felt as though if I miss one, then it will become a habit and I'll start missing another. And the next thing you know, I'm not even doing the podcast anymore. So because I gave God my yes, I wanted to make sure I stuck with that. So I was holding myself accountable. And I remember last week, the podcast was supposed to go out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I haven't recorded by now. I'm supposed to be editing and I haven't done anything. But every time when I set aside time to do it, I just wasn't mentally there. It wasn't flowing. I kept stopping. I couldn't even get 2 to 3 words out. It was like a mind block. It wasn't flowing. So I kept stopping and I gave myself grace. Okay, I'll stop. Maybe we'll try again tomorrow. But the same thing kept happening, and I was getting frustrated and I was getting overwhelmed and I was starting to become anxious because I only had now 2 to 3 days before the episode is supposed to post, and I had nothing, didn't even really have a topic. And I remember going to God and praying, Lord, you got to do something. It ain't supposed to be this hard. Why am I struggling? Why am I having a hard time? It's too early. It's too early. It's only May. It hasn't even been a year. And I remember asking him, did I hear you wrong? I need a sign. I need you to show me something. Or this ain't gonna work. This is gonna be short-lived. Like, is this really what you want me to do? So I remember saying that prayer. And then the following morning, I get a notification on Facebook from someone in our community. And she invites me to one of her events to be an honoree. And when I say I teared up because that was the sign that I needed, I felt like before that I was wasting my time. I felt like I was putting in the effort of doing a video, but then it didn't have a good reach. People weren't watching it. And I was like, it's only 10, 20 people watching my videos. I can call them up and have a meeting myself. Do I really need to do a podcast? So I felt like it was a waste of time. I felt like people didn't see me. I wasn't being seen. And it was discouraging. It was unmotivating. And God knew how desperate I was, and I needed a sign. I needed confirmation. And He did that. It was less than 24 hours. I'm telling y'all, the next morning I woke up, I received that notification, and it blessed me so much because it reassured me I am where I need to be. And God can do the same thing for you. It doesn't have to take a week. He is fast. He can do it. He will let you know. And I think one of the hardest things about feeling stuck is that eventually we start to become hard on ourselves. We start questioning ourselves. We start wondering, why can't I just get up and do it? Why do I keep procrastinating? Why don't I feel motivated? And eventually you may start labeling yourself as lazy. And I had to ask myself last week, am I lazy or am I just mentally exhausted or burnt out? Because there is a difference. Burnout looks like wanting to do something but feeling mentally exhausted. It looks like emotional fatigue, creative exhaustion, not being able to focus, feeling overwhelmed, not enjoying the things that you normally enjoy. This was me last week. I had scheduled time out to work on a podcast and I couldn't focus. I couldn't get 2 to 3 words out. It was not flowing. I had writer's block. I had creative block. I couldn't think. I couldn't focus. So, burnout looks like I care, but I'm tired. And laziness looks like I don't care enough to even try. So, there is a difference because sometimes we're beating ourselves up when we're just human. Discouragement and fear can also be spiritual. And doubt can intensify when we're getting closer to something meaningful. The enemy will try to come in and attack our consistency, our purpose, our identity, who we are. They'll put thoughts in our mind saying that we should quit or we're not good enough or you're not going to make it or this isn't going anywhere or we're a failure. But we have to stay grounded. After I prayed about it, I started receiving reassurance in different ways. I started to receive different messages from friends and even people that I didn't know saying that they felt inspired by the podcast or it gave them a different perspective. But not only that, but it was people in the community that saw what I was doing or saw my vision and wanted to celebrate me or honor me. So when you're in your purpose and you're in your calling, sometimes you're going to feel discouraged. Sometimes that is part of the process. And sometimes right before growth and right before breakthrough, right before that impact, there's some resistance. So, next, we're going to talk about 4 practical advice for people afraid to start. Number 1, stop waiting to feel fully ready. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be 100% ready. I wasn't ready. When I started this podcast in January, I had 2 months to get ready, and I didn't even know the name of my podcast or let alone what it was going to be about. I wasn't ready, but I had to start. Number 2, start imperfectly. When I started my podcast, it was not perfect. If you go back and watch the first couple of episodes, there were so many glitches. The lighting was bad, the storyline was bad, the editing was bad. I didn't know what I was doing. As long as you have growth and as long as one person feels inspired or encouraged or motivated, that's all that matters. A lot of times, striving for or trying to be perfect will stop you from even starting. Number 3, focus on obedience over outcome. Sometimes we become so focused on success that we forget the assignment that God gave us. For example, if you starting a business, a lot of times you may not make any income for a while. It may be a period where you're not paying yourselves, but focus on what God told you and everything else will start flowing in. Number 4, protect your mind. In this season of my life, I'm noticing how important it is that I protect my mind. And what do I mean by that? Discouragement doesn't just happen all at night. A lot of times it comes from a thought, a small doubt, a small frustration that grows. We have to be very mindful about what we're listening to, the conversations that we're a part of, what we're watching on TV, the music, all of these things plays a role on how we think and how we process things and our perspective on different things. And even with our negative self-talk, that can really delay our growth. That can really be a huge discouragement. How we replay things that happened weeks ago, that can delay us. Whether we're consciously aware of it or not, it affects us. So, next, I'm going to go over 3 practical ways to regain motivation. Number 1, give yourself permission to rest without feeling guilty. And this may sound like something simple, but for me, this was a struggle. I had a set day and time that I said I was going to record and do my podcast. And when that day came, I wasn't motivated. I didn't have my creative juices to write. The words weren't flowing naturally. And I had to push it back. I had no choice. I couldn't get 2 to 3 words out. So I pushed it back a couple days, but then the same thing happened. And it wasn't until about a week and a half later where I was actually able to do the recording. And once I took the pressure off of myself and removed myself from that rigid schedule, I was able to flow better and the load felt a lot lighter. But a lot of times we have to rest. We know we're not being lazy, but sometimes burnout happens and that restricts us. So we have to make sure that we allow our body time to rest. And resting does not mean that you're quitting. Number 2, learn your personal rhythm. And one thing that I had to learn about myself is that my inspiration comes in waves. So when it comes, I have to jump on it. There are certain times of days and days out of the week where I'm feeling most focused and energized. For example, I'm a morning person. I am the most creative. I have my deepest thoughts and able to concentrate and focus the most on the mornings. So I try to take advantage of that. I do the most heavy lifting during those times. That's when I normally like to do the podcast recordings is in the morning. That's where I'm performing my best. But know yourself, know your rhythm. When you have those moments where you're ready to start the business or God starts downloading some business ideas or tips, write it down. Take advantage of it. Don't just take a mental note, but really take advantage of that opportunity. It comes in waves. When it comes and you're motivated, jump on it. Act then. Don't wait. Number 3, reconnect with your why. And this is something that has really helped me a lot, especially during times or days where I feel discouraged or unmotivated. But when I actually reflect on why I started the Unique in You, the mission was to empower women to be bold, confident, and authentic. So sometimes you have to sit back and really think on the why. Why did you start this business in the first place? Why did you go into this field? Why did you pick this major? Why did you decide on this hobby? Whatever it is, but reconnect with your why. If there's one thing that I hope you take away from this episode is that feeling discouraged does not mean that you're weak. Feeling tired does not mean that you're lazy. And having moments where you question yourself does not mean that you're failing. Life happens, discouragement happens. But one of the most important things is that you have grace and that you are feeling stuck. I just want to encourage you to not give up. Rest if you need to and reset. Put in the chat how you're feeling right now. I'm curious to know how you're feeling this season of your life. But don't let temporary discouragement convince you to walk away from something meaningful. And if you made it this far in the episode, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can be alerted of upcoming episodes. So next we have the featured earring of the week, which are these yellow, red, and green earrings to represent Juneteenth. And if you're interested in this collection, you can visit my website at www.theuniqueinyou.com. I will also be making some more designs to celebrate Juneteenth, but as I make them, I will be posting them. So make sure you stay alerted and stay connected. Until next time, embrace the unique in you.